Welcome back, folks. Something a little different today. If the shit ever hit the fan and you needed to grow whatever you could for food and you could not find chemical fertilizer, because there's a rumor out there that chemical fertilizer might come in short. There might be a shortage. The number one producer of chemical fertilizer is, I believe, Russia, then China, and then the United States. So if you find yourself needing to grow food and you cannot get a hold of chemical fertilizer, I have two coops here, and I do the deep litter method. So I have a lot of compost here, and I make that compost go a little bit further by adding freshly sawn sawdust to it. It makes it stretch it a little bit further. And sawdust on its own can sit in a pile for 30 plus years undisturbed. You go back 30 years later, you dig down into that sawdust and it's going to look like it was just fresh sawn. It's going to be so golden color. So sawdust breaks down very, very slow. You have to really work at sawdust. So, but I do add sawdust here, and there is a way that I do that to break down that sawdust fast. There is a way that I compost here that breaks down any kind of compost in record time. And I'm going to give you that secret formula, folks. I'm sure it's out there on the web somewhere. But if it is, I bet they don't have the other ingredient that I'm going to tell you about. The alternative ingredient. So, under this snow here, you see 3 mounds, and then you have the piles of snow in front and on the right-hand side there. That is compost. Underneath all that snow, there's 3 piles of compost that I worked up from last year's coop spring cleanup. This is what I call the slow method. You turn it, you make sure it gets air, it warms up, it heats up, and it's breaking down. You turn it until, well, here in May, until it freezes solid. But there is a faster way, folks. You can make compost out of just about anything, but I'm just going to stick with coop litter. If you needed to make coop litter into compost in Zoom fashion, here's what you need to do. You need to get a 5-gallon bucket. Put in that 5-gallon bucket 1 gallon of lukewarm water. It's got to be lukewarm. And you take 1 can of flat, warm beer. Put it out the night before. Use it the next morning. It's got to be warm and it's got to be flat. And the more yeast in that beer, the better. So the light beers probably aren't going to be work as well. But you don't want to spend a lot of money on a can of beer either. Just get, the cheapest beer out there that's not a light beer. So you're going to add 1 gallon of lukewarm water, 1 can of warm flat beer, and 1 can of soda. Now, the soda, it can't be sugar-free. So what you're doing is you're starting the base out with warm water. The beer has yeast in it. Yeast works best when it's in lukewarm water, like if you're making bread. And you need sugar. So water, yeast, and sugar. So you stir that all up. Now the other component is ammonia. Now you can use household ammonia, and that's a 1/2 cup. And you stir all those ingredients up. So you've got a can of beer, you've got a can of soda, and you've got ammonia. Now, what the ammonia does is reduces the acid in that compost. So you're going to need that. But the cheapest alternative to ammonia is your own urine. Urine is stale, folks, but it's got a lot of nitrogen in it. So you take a half a cup of your own urine and you mix it in with that formula. Now, there's a caution on the urine. Even though it's sterile, in order for that urine to work, the person that provides that urine cannot be on any antibiotics. Antibiotics will kill the bacteria needed to break down that compost. So there's that secret formula. So you take all those ingredients, you stir it up really well, and you pour it slowly on top of your compost heap. And then you stir it, you stir it, you stir it, you stir it, you stir it really good. So, you know, all those, well, you got a gallon, so you got a gallon and a pint of liquid. So you're going to want that gallon and a pint of liquid to coat all of that compost. Then you're going to let it sit there for 2 or 3 days. If you've got a thermometer probe, a compost thermometer probe, stick it right down the middle. And when it starts heating up, then you stir it again. Okay, put the thermometer back in, you stir it again. So that's the fastest, quickest way to break down material to use as compost. Now, you can also throw in a bunch of green stuff, grass clippings. If you weed whack, just rake that up. If you've got weeds that you're pulling up, throw them right in there. Now, a caution with the weeds. Weeds are good. It's good green material to add to the compost, but if they are seeding out, all those seeds are going to be in your compost. So when you use that compost in your garden, you're going to get those weeds in there because you just planted them. You just planted those weed seeds. So get the weeds before they have gone to seed. And if the shit ever hits a fan, that is the cheapest, quickest way. And it's not going to hurt for your preps to have maybe a 6-pack or a 12-pack of the cheap beer, or a 6-pack or a case of soda, and then you can always use your own urine to make the solution. The price of seeds, folks, I bought mine. I grow heirlooms, so I saved my seeds, but I've already got my seeds. But from last year, I added a few things to my garden, and I bought seeds, and I was complaining about the price last year. They've doubled this year. Some of them have tripled in price. So if you haven't gotten your seeds, folks, you need to be getting your seeds and expect to be paying a little bit more than you have been throughout the years. But heirloom, if you can get heirloom, I am going to do a few videos on how to collect heirloom seeds. And the easy way, not the BS way where they make it all fancy. I'm talking about a dishpan, folks. A dishpan in your hands, the best way. And it's not winnowing out, but it is, but it's removing the chaff. I don't call it winnowing, but you'll see. So I hope this was informative. I hope you take what advice I give, because I'm not going to BS anybody. I have figured out over the years what works for me, and it's trial and error. It is failing. So I'm going to give you good, useful information. You know, what I find useful, I'm not going to stand out in the snow, and I'm not going to stand out in the rain or the cold or the blistering heat or anything to put out a bunch of BS. One, I don't have time for that, but I do like to help people, and I do like to teach people what I know. We don't do anything fancy here. You know, my cousin said, you know, you already live in survival mode. And I had never thought of that, but yes, I do. I make everything as simple as I possibly can, and that's just how I prefer to live. It might be more hard work, but I can tell you, if the shit ever hit the fan, I'm going to be I'm going to be well educated on how to do things, well experienced, and it's not going to be much of a life change for me, which is good, which is good. So I hope you will like this. If you liked it, please subscribe. If you know of anybody that could use any information I give, whether it's this one or any other information I give, uh, share the video. And I'm loving the comments, folks. I am absolutely loving the comments. You have been a great, great source of support and encourage me to come up with more material. And because what I find not useful, because it's part of my life, I don't realize, I don't stop to think that other people may not know what or how to do certain things. So I've got to step back and say, okay, if they're not living the way I do, if they're not doing things that I'm doing, and I'm already living in survival mode, what can I offer? What can I offer for information? So that's how I'm going to approach it from now on, and I'm always going to give, the whole gung-ho, to not give up, keep your spirits up, folks. Continue to educate others, prepare, plan, think ahead, think outside the box, think more simple. Okay, folks, thank you. Come again.